Today, I talked to the founder and CEO of MitoRedLight, Scott Chaverri. We talk about how he's launching a product with lasers, why he thinks panels don't need any more power, how green light is not always green light, why his products don't use pulsing. Oh, and be sure to stick around to the end because he does give me a bit of criticism about my own video reviews. I think you might enjoy listening to that. So Scott, thank you for joining me today. I'm looking forward to picking your brain on not only the products you sell, but a bit about yourself, the background with the company, and also what you see happening in the coming years in the red light therapy industry. So how are you doing?
I am fantastic.
First things first though, tell me a bit about the company.
Sure. So I'm Scott Chaverri. I'm the founder and CEO of MitoRedLight. We've been in business a little over 4 years. We started in early 2019. We started with 3 basic SKUs, like 3 very simple but powerful red lights. And we've grown quite a bit over the past 4.5 years with the industry as a whole. And really our goal is to essentially be the one-stop shop for red light. That's how I describe my goal for this company. So if somebody is interested in red light, they think it might help them, they think they might benefit, we want them to be able to come to us, and we want to be able to have a solution for them.
Yeah, nice. And I have definitely noticed that. Like I remember when I first reviewed your, I can't even remember the name, your original series, many years ago, 3-4 years ago. Yeah, like you said, you had 1 or 2 sort of basic, they were rather basic now in hindsight, panels, but they worked and they were good power and good value. Now you head over to your website and you've got 2 or 3 different product lines with the panels. You've got belts, you've got battery devices. I see you've also got helmets coming out soon. Yeah, it's quite amazing. So what's driven you to go beyond just those panels? And how do you know, like something like a helmet? Where do you even start with something like that? Is it all just down to wavelengths and power, or is there more that you're looking at when it comes to launching a product?
Well, as far as the product development and like the growth of the portfolio of the products, a lot of that comes from just listening to our customers, and what they're asking about, what their concerns are, what their objections are. And I really got to the point where obviously the panels are the core of our business. And I wanted to give people choices within the panels. Our Mito Pro is the most popular by far. It's kind of right now it's our mid-range. But, for some people that are on a budget, we want to also be able to offer them something relatively inexpensive that they can at least try it. So that's our original 2.0 series, which, you can get a tabletop for only $249. We're listening to our customers. We want to give them choices. We want to have solutions for them. And then we also want to innovate. We want to try and drive the industry forward. And that's kind of the genesis of the MitoADAPT panel, which came out in November. Took me about 9 months to get that fully designed and implemented and launched. And we have a patent pending on that. We're really excited about what it can do for the industry, for our customers, and for us. And then, and then again, part and parcel with the listening to our customers. People want something that's more portable, so we came out with a mobile device. And then when you start thinking about portable devices, that leads you down the road of having the wrap and the belt that we have. We actually just came out with a full body mat, which I took down to Mexico with me, and I was doing red light in the morning before I went out and baked in the Mexican sun. So it's thinking about what do our customers need, what do they want, what really complements our existing portfolio of products. And the helmets is actually an interesting story too, because I knew guys building laser helmets in their garage 10 years ago. So I knew that that was a thing, but it wasn't super high on our list. But I said, I think that there's an opportunity to do a helmet. And I have it right here. I've been using it for a couple of months, and I'll be writing an article in the next month or so documenting my experience with the helmet.
Yeah, neat. That's something I look forward to learning more about. And actually, let's go straight into the helmets and lasers and LEDs. I see you do have one that is LED based and the other one that is using lasers. Is that correct?
Yes. So so part of it is, again, I thinking about this in terms of giving people choices. So whenever we develop a new product and launch a new product, my personality is to try and launch something that is as good as or better than anything else that's out there, and or at a better value. And so, and then I realized when we were thinking about the laser helmets that in order to do that economically, it needs to be a little bit more expensive, but I want to give people choice. So then we decided to do a laser and an LED helmet, which is actually, that laser and LED helmet is based off of a couple of very specific studies where they used those exact number of lasers and LEDs and they showed benefit. So we're looking at very specific studies, and I think it's 30 LEDs, 26 lasers. There were a couple of studies done and they showed benefit on hair growth. So that product, the inexpensive product, was designed off of those studies. And then the laser helmet, I just know, again, from 10 years ago, that typically for hair growth, lasers have been used. And so I looked out on the marketplace, and there's actually a couple of really good products out there that I think are very high quality that use somewhere between 160 and 200 lasers. They're a little bit more expensive, so we were able to come up with this design and price it lower than those other products. And I'm very happy with it. I mean, and I love this one because it's completely portable. It's you don't have to be plugged into the outlet. So I throw the helmet on, I put the controller in my pocket, and then I walk around and do stuff. And 20 minutes later, you're done.
Go for a bike ride and strap on the helmet.
There you go. And safety too.
Had a good little thumbnail for a YouTube video, perhaps. Yeah, well, I'm definitely excited to see when they come out to have a play with them and learn a bit more about them, especially, the one with the lasers, because, I mean, the whole part of the reason this red light therapy space has exploded, especially in the consumer market, is because the LEDs were now able to put out a decent amount of red light, of light at a particular wavelength. So it is interesting to see you, going back to the, I don't want to say older technology, but let's say the original sort of technology. So do you think there would ever be, with your research around lasers, do you think you'd ever incorporate lasers into a panel or a belt or something like that? Or you think it's more for the hair regrowth?
Well, never say never. But see, we stayed with LEDs because of the safety profile, right? Like the LEDs, our panels, 60-degree beam angle. It's very safe. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to do it wrong. Not impossible, perhaps, but with the lasers, you do have to be careful. I mean, even in our helmet, we have a safety mechanism. So when it's on your head, it's on. If you try to take it off, it will turn off.
Well,
because we don't want, we don't want the lasers necessarily going into the eyes. Yeah. And so, never say never. There are some people in the light therapy space that are laser purists, and they will try to tell you that laser is the only way it should be done. I think you and I know differently. LEDs can be just as effective, and certainly for the typical at-home consumer, the safety profile is considerably better. So, so this is the one exception to the rule, but then again, because it's being used on the head and we've got the safety mechanism built in, I'm comfortable bringing it to market.
Cool. So let's take a step back here. You have now got quite a diverse product range, right? But if you were to condense it down and just make like one sort of recommendation for a newbie, someone's just read about red light therapy and I've got that sore shoulder and a bit of bad skin, would you still go back to recommending a panel for someone like that? I mean, is the panel still the overall, the best, the ultimate, the do-it-all device, do you think?
I do, yeah. So we get this question now because we have the belts and we have the mat. And, actually the irradiance on the mat, if you measure right over the LED, is actually pretty good. It's like 40 milliwatts per centimeter squared. It's right over the LED, which is where your body would be laying. The problem is that those LEDs are not right next to each other. There's dead space. There's dead spots. Mm-hmm. And so with our panels, there are no dead spots. When you're back 6-12 inches, you're getting every square inch of the body covered. Yeah. So by far, if you were only going to choose one, the panel's the way to go. Yeah. The mat is great. I mean, I have it sitting here sometimes when I take a break and play Fortnite. I don't know if you know what Fortnite is, but I've been playing the past year and a half with my son. I'll sit on there. I got a PEMF mat under there, and I'll sit on my red light mat and I'll play the game. I'll get a little red light therapy while I'm playing my video games, taking a break. And it's great. It's comfortable. It warms up a little bit. And, I'm getting a little extra dose. But if I was only going to do one, absolutely, I would go stand in front of a Mito Pro 1500.
Yeah. It's interesting because that's where my thought process goes as well, especially when I'm reviewing some of these, the belts or the masks, and it's like, I can see their purpose, but you get better value and you get more options in terms of treatment options, with something like a panel, like the beauty mask, great for the face, but you can't really use it on your neck. I suppose you could, but you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to use it on your back and stuff, whereas the panel, you can do both. So now I was just keen to get your thoughts there. One quick thing with that mat, I've noticed, because I have been testing these masks lately, I've noticed that often I get a little bit sweaty because you've got that light source, right up against the skin. There's no airflow going around there. And it's not that the LEDs are high powered. I mean, some of them are really, really low, like lucky to break 1 milliwatt over centimeter squared. But I noticed just the fact that you're wearing something or something's wrapped around the skin, you get a little bit of sweat going on. Is that the same with that mat? Do you notice that?
I do, although my genetics, I've always been kind of an easy to sweat type guy, unfortunately. So, but I do notice, I definitely notice the heat. And if I'm on that and usually I just turn the setting way up. If I'm going to do it, I just put it on the highest level and sit on it. And by the end of a 30-minute session, I'm definitely might start to sweat and I might turn it down.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because I personally, I don't like that. It's just, I hate being sweaty unless I'm going in the sauna or doing a workout, and then it's like, it's getting...
I totally agree.
Just general discomfort. I mean, even using this mask lately, I'm like, oh gosh, I feel like I need a shower afterwards. It sucks. But have you looked, I know there's a bit of content out there at the moment. I always get the comments and people sharing me articles where people are saying, look, as soon as there's thermal buildup, there's heat coming from the light source, you're overdoing it. Now, I've got my thoughts on this, but what's interesting is, again, I'm sweating from a mask that's putting out 1 milliwatt over centimeter squared of light. It's very, very little compared to, say, a panel. But then it makes me wonder, is that having that same thermal buildup, and in turn, potentially, am I overdoing it? Have you looked at any of the dosages or like the radiance figures around thermal buildup and maybe the negative effects of that? And do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, not specifically, but I am highly skeptical of that. Again, we know what the power output is. It's 40 milliwatts. Now, granted, if you're sitting on it for an extended period of time, you're delivering a fair amount of joules. But it's natural that you're going to sweat. I don't know that. But some of that thermal buildup could be a good thing. I mean, usually if you use something like a heating bed, you're trying to increase circulation to the area. So if you're getting increased circulation, generally we would regard that as a good thing. And I think, whatever the thermal buildup is quite trivial, and it dissipates literally the second you come off the thing.
Yeah.
So, this idea that there's a negative effect from it is, I'm skeptical of that.
Yeah, and we've taken a pretty deep dive through the research. I mean, we were finding studies that were using 250 milliwatt.
Right, and when you look at the safety, I mean, usually it's like 300 milliwatts. Is where you start to get concerned about safety. And so most of the products out there are well under that. I mean, this is at 40, and even our panels are somewhere between 50 to 70. I mean, you've measured them typically at the usage distance. So we're well under the safety thresholds.
How do you think this is going to play out from the power irradiance point of view? Because it's become almost like overhyped in a way where it's like, look, we've got the most powerful panel out there, and these are our radiance figures, and there's so many flaws to it. Firstly, you don't know what device they're using to test the power figure. Yep. Secondly, there's distances, 3 inches, 6 inches, 12 inches. Thirdly, there's no regulation or anything. So, I mean, you can pretty much say what you want. But then you've also got this issue now where the panels are getting extremely powerful. I mean, in 3 generations of panels, 3, 4, 5 years, like we've exploded in terms of the power intensities. So how do you think this is going to play out? Like, you're in this space. I find it fascinating because I'm personally going to shift my focus to not be so caught up on the power figures, because we know there's tons of power. It does the job. It's great. But how do you see this as someone in the company? Like, are you still getting comments, people saying, oh, I was going to buy yours, but this one over here is more powerful? Like, what are your thoughts on this topic? Hey, so if you're enjoying this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. And also, a lot of time and the energy goes into producing videos like this. If you're enjoying this and want me to continue down this path, be sure to hit the subscribe button. I really do appreciate it.
Well, I have many thoughts on that topic. First is we don't really have any intent at this point to make anything any more powerful than we already have.
Yeah.
We think, after being in this space for 4 years now, you've measured the Mito Pro, you know that it's putting out copious amounts of light. Mm-hmm. People are benefiting from it. These customers have used our devices safely for 4 years, and we're very happy with that. We're getting positive feedback, and everyone's used the devices safely, and that's where we want to be. Right? We have a responsibility to be to put out safe products. My concern is when you say, where do you think this is going to go, is that exactly what you said, that other companies are going to think that they, in order to get an advantage, or whether it's marketing or otherwise, to make something more powerful, use a narrower beam angle, and and then potentially, somebody doesn't use it wisely and has an unfavorable outcome. I mean, that would be my concern of where it could possibly go. We'll do our best to continue to educate the consumer. And the other thing is really to keep putting out independent testing data. Because at the end of the day, you have to test it in the lab. It's pretty well known now that the solar meters are not accurate. And as far as dosing goes, you need good lab data to know exactly what that light's putting out at the usage distance, and to just to use that. And then also just let's continually, you and I and anybody else that's listening, put out the message that more isn't necessarily better.
Yeah.
Right. And we're looking for the Goldilocks. And even to the point where we stopped, we now recommended 1 day off per week, because there is this idea of a cumulative dose effect. Mm-hmm. And if you're using it every day, and some of the benefits could potentially, there's some data suggesting it could last more than 24 hours. You get this cumulative benefit, but then do you hit an inhibitory zone at some point if you don't take a day off? Yeah. That was my thought there. So, and personally, I use it 4 or 5 days a week, and I usually take the weekends off.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's so much to unpack there. And firstly, like, I do feel like I'm partially responsible for the whole power, most powerful thing, because when I was first testing them, there was such a discrepancy between, panels, and it was like, whoa, this is really bad and this one's actually quite good. But I didn't expect in 3 or 4 years the power numbers to get to where they are now. So I have a duty, I think, to clean up that message there. But it's going to be hard because humans, we're just naturally looking for bigger and faster. And
I know.
So there's going to be that. But it's interesting you talk about like cycling the doses and having breaks, and that's something that I've personally done most of pretty much all the years I've been using red light therapy. When I first started, I used to just use them on the weekdays as part of my weekday routine, and then have the weekends off. More recently, I use it around training. It's part of my pre-training, warm-up mobility routine. I do my red light. So if I'm only training 4 times a week, I only do 4 red light therapy sessions. And it is interesting, but at the same time, it's kind of frustrating that we're still trying to figure this out, right? Like, there's no hard data on this, and anyone that comes out and says, no, you have to do it this way, that's the only way that works. It's like, you don't know that. I mean,
right. I'm working on it. I mean, that's why we launched the MitoADAPT. The MitoADAPT really is the goal of the MitoADAPT, and the app around it is to systematically gather user feedback and see what is actually working for people.
Okay, let's talk.
So I'm working on it, but that's going to take a few years, but it's underway.
So I've been playing with that panel the last week or so, and I've actually just finished my review. It's not out yet, but or maybe out by the time this video is up. So yeah, I've got my thoughts on that. But for people that don't know anything about your new MitoADAPT panel and the app and that, give them a bit of a rundown on how it works and what you're trying to achieve here.
Sure. So the MitoADAPT has a unique design where we've put 2 different colored chips under each lens. So let's say I think the light that you have, the MitoADAPT Min, there's 72 lenses, but there's actually 144 LED chips, because each lens has 2 chips underneath, and each lens has 2 different colored chips underneath, and it's a very specific pattern. Let me see if I can recall the actual pattern, but it's so like in the first column, first row, it's a 660 nanometer red and an 850 nanometer near infrared, and then the second column, first row, is a 630 nanometer red and an 850 nanometer near infrared, and then if you go down, second row, first column, 630 nanometer red, 810 nanometer near infrared, and then second column, second row is 660 nanometer red and 810 nanometer near infrared. And why is that important? Because when we arrange the 4 LEDs that way, and we create, essentially, there are 8 different circuits within that device, and we can turn on any 50% of any color at any specific time. So that what that allows us to do is essentially run 11 different possible combinations of wavelengths. And so, you can make half the panel 660, and then the other half 810 and 850, or half the panel 630 and the other 2 810 and 850, or you can make half of it 660, half of it 630, et cetera, et cetera. So when you do the math, there are 11 possibilities. And the goal with that was, I sat down and I asked myself, how do I build the most flexible hardware that I can possibly build, given what I know and what the technology supports? And that's what I came up with. So the hardware is as flexible as I can think to make it. And then what we do is we take the app and we put it on top, and then the app allows us to do a few things. It allows us to collect feed, to know what modes people are using and how long, how many minutes they're using them for. And then it allows us to collect subjective feedback. So you'll use the device. I don't know if you've been using the app or not, because it does require Bluetooth. And you may be a low EMF guy like me, but you turn on the Bluetooth, you turn on the app, and you go mode 2, and then the next day we may say, hey, how'd you sleep last night? Good, better, best. It's like a 3-point scale. Well, how's your energy level today? Or how are your aches and pains? And so we ask these kind of general questions. And the goal, the hope, is that over time we're going to start to see relationships between certain modes or certain durations or certain ways that people are using the lights and the wavelengths and the reported outcomes. So that's kind of the goal behind it. And then the other thing the app allows us to do is essentially we can do an infinite number of protocols or algorithms or sequences. So like one of the things we're launching next month is I've got three new sequences we're going to launch. We're going to do a sunrise mode, we're going to do a sunset mode, and we're going to do an interval mode. So, the sunrise will be kind of because we can control the brightness as well. So the sunrise mode will be kind of the longer wavelengths going to the shorter wavelengths and gradually increasing the brightness. And the sunset mode will be the inverse of that. And the interval mode is going to be the where you can run red, the whole panel red, and then the whole panel near infrared separately.
Right.
As I've had people tell me that is actually a superior way to do red light therapy.
Really?
So although I don't know exactly why, I have to go back and go through the archives to articulate that. Maybe that could be a follow-up. But so the idea behind the interval mode is you can say, we're going to set the interval between 1 and 4 minutes. Let's say you set it for 2 minutes. The whole panel will go red for 2 minutes. Then it will go all near infrared for 2 minutes. Then it'll go back to all red for 2 minutes. Vice versa until you're done with your session. And so you can, you can set it from anywhere from 1 to 4 minutes. But the idea is you can pulse the red and the infrared. And without having to turn you can do it on other devices, but you have to manually turn it on and off, right?
Yeah. So one question then, those 11 modes you have, were they designed or developed with any research in mind, or it's just like does mode 3, is that what you think is going to be best for, I don't know, muscle recovery or anything like that? Or did you just put a bunch of options out there and hopefully over time you'll see which ones emerge as the winners for particular issues?
Well, we looked at different points on the spectrum that have been studied. I mean, 630 and 660, and you find these in devices pretty commonly now. Like there's more people are adding in more wavelengths. 810 has been shown to penetrate the deepest into the body, so 810 was added. 850 obviously is very commonly used. So we had, we based on the design, we had to pick 4. Those are the 4 we chose. But the answer to your question is no. I have absolutely no idea what is the best wavelength to use for sleep. The whole point of the exercise is that maybe we'll be able to find out. Maybe when I collect thousands of data points, 80% of the people that use mode 2 are telling me they're sleeping great. And I'll be like, that's a signal. And especially it'll be a powerful signal if, it's the inverse for mode 6.
Yeah.
Only 20% people are right. It may be that it's just all noise and that we don't learn anything, but, this is why we're doing the exercise.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting. I personally, I'm going to go out and I'll say this on record. I personally think you won't notice like any real big outliers because I mean, like I think the takeaway will be, hey, all of this stuff works. You're sick. You've got good wavelengths in there. Like it's all going to have some impact, and it's going to be hard to sort out those minor, or this person recovered a little bit faster. Like that finer sort of detail. And I may be wrong. I mean, it would be awesome.
Well,
awesome.
So obviously I'm hoping you're wrong. In some respects, because we put a lot of effort and thought into this, and we're hoping that we see, because this is something that has come up a lot over the past 4 years. What should I use for sleep? What should I use for recovery? And I have to say, we don't know, honestly, and I don't think anybody really does. And so part of it was, how can I even begin to figure this out? And so this was the solution that we came up with. But I do think that we will see things. We know that the absorption curves are different for different chromophores, and melanin is one of the big ones. So one of the things we do ask intake questions.
Yeah.
And we ask age, we ask gender, and we ask Fitzpatrick skin type.
Yeah.
And I do think that, say, people with darker pigment skin might actually... we might even see on things. One of my hypotheses would be darker pigment skin benefit on balance from more near infrared than red, simply because we know that the melanin is absorbing more red light. And if you're darker pigment, then so it's not penetrating as deep. So on balance, you probably would benefit more from near infrared. And I've even toyed around with the idea. I don't know if last time you've looked at the optical window absorption curves, but there is a drop at around 1060. And I was thinking, that there's a product development track for doing something that is more for darker pigmented folks, where you use that wavelength, because there's minimal water absorption. There's a drop in the water absorption curve, but you're well out of the melanin absorption range there. So things like that, I think, and this is a hypothesis. I don't know if that's accurate or not. It makes sense based on what I know. But again, that's the whole point of the exercise. We're going to gather the data and see what we learn.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it plays out. And I hope you do find some neat things, because it is a little bit overwhelming. Like someone asked me the other day, I've got this particular health issue. What wavelength should I use? And it's like, look, I knew nothing about that particular health issue. So I went over to the research database and do a quick search through there, and there's dozens of studies in there, and they're using all different wavelengths,
right.
Most of them are spot treatments, not full panels, and some of them were multiple times a day. Some of them were like once or twice a week. Like there were just so many variables, and it's so hard because you want to give them some information that can help them with their issue, but what do you say? Like, well, you can try this wavelength and this wavelength, this wavelength. You could try 2 big sessions a week, or you could try 15 sessions a day. Like it's all over there. And then that just shows one snippet of what we know or don't know on that particular topic. It's not to say that these other wavelengths won't work, or some other radical treatment won't work. And it's hard. And I totally get where you're coming from and why you're trying to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the problem. Like, even if you went into the research and it was relatively clean, let's say you found 5 really good studies that said that 660 nanometers was great. That could just be because that doesn't mean that 60 nanometers is the best. It could just be that that's what they happen to study, And so
Yes.
if they studied, 760 or 810, they would have found even better results. I mean, so, this is, again, hopefully we start to see some signals as we gather the data, and we can start to actually drive the research. That would be actually a fantastic outcome. And actually, that's where I'm hoping that in a year we start to see some signals in the data, and then the plan is that we'll do our own studies.
I will be following that closely. So with the new MitoADAPT range, like you mentioned before, you got 4 wavelengths. I noticed you've included 810 and dropped out 830. Can you explain why that is the case?
Well, there are 2 reasons. One is that the Pro has 830, and so just from within the portfolio of products that we offer, it made sense to have something a little different. And secondly, the 810 has been shown to penetrate the deepest. So if we figured, but 830 is a peak point for cytochrome C oxidase. So that's why it's in the Pro. However, 810 and 830, I mean, they're bell curves of energy. So when you overlay them, you're still getting a good amount of 830. But we wanted to give the flexibility for folks if they wanted 810. There's a lot of products for brain health, et cetera, that use 810 because it's been shown to penetrate into the skull, the deepest. You can make half the panel 810 if that was your specific use case. That was really the thought. But if you want 830, then just use 810 and 850 together, and you'll get a decent amount of 830.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because that's something that a lot of people they're probably not aware of, because when they see that number 660, 850, whatever, they think that's all you're getting. I mean, naturally that's what anyone would think, but when you actually learn a bit about how the LEDs are working, or you see some of the graphs from my testing or lab testing, you see that there's a range, and I've noticed that 1 or 2 companies have started including that in their marketing. They'll say 660 plus or minus 10 nanometers, or they might say 1070 with a 50 nanometer range, so you're getting
right.
And 25, because that's actually true. And was it?
We do the same.
Yeah.
We do the same. So we say it's a spectral range, so the Pro is 590 up to 8 or 900 roughly.
Yeah, and that also complicates things even further, right? Because you could use your 660 and think, this is amazing, but in turn it could be the 650 that's actually offensive. There's so many variables. But we'll move on from that. So some companies in the space, including some rather large companies, state that it doesn't really matter what particular wavelengths you're getting, as long as there's some near infrared in there and some red light, you're going to get everything you need, and that anything other than 660 and 850 is just unnecessary. What are your? Obviously, you don't agree with that because you've got panels that go beyond those wavelengths. Do you think they're just caught in a bit of they painted themselves into a corner here, or they don't want to admit that potentially they were wrong, or they truly, or is there some science behind that viewpoint?
Well, okay, so you asked like several different questions there. So as far as the companies that kind of put that idea forward, as far as I know, there is no scientific basis for that viewpoint whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the 660, it's actually a misnomer that 660 and 850 are the most studied wavelengths. Actually, 810 and 830 is actually considerably more studied than 850. And 630 and 633, if you lump them together, are more studied than 660. So that is a misnomer. That's not even an accurate statement to say that they're the most studied. Now, were they a bit when this industry was getting started? I don't know, however far back we want to go, 8 years ago, the panel industry, thereabouts. Were those bad choices? No, they were actually probably pretty good choices. I mean, we're 660s right in the middle of red, 850s between, right between 8 and 900. We know the optical window, or probably the optimal part of the optical window, is between 6 to 900. So you pick 2 points right in the middle. So I don't think they were bad choices, but I also think that they were probably driven by just availability of these LEDs. I mean, 660 nanometers are used in grow lights. 850 nanometers are used in security camera industry. So it's also just a supply chain issue, frankly. I think that those choices were made because those LEDs were readily available. Thankfully for us, the LED technology has come so far that they know how to dope the semiconductor to make whatever wavelength we want, to have it peak wherever we want. I mean, it's amazing. It's really exciting as a guy in the industry that the technology has come as far as it has, because we can cost effectively create whatever we want, essentially. So I disagree that they're the optimal. I disagree that they're even the most studied. That is demonstrably false. And also just looking at the optical window absorption spectra, that these wavelengths are behaving differently at different points on the body at different points. And certainly these wavelengths are going to behave differently in different people, whether you're in melanin or adipose tissue, hydration. I mean, all of these things are variables that can influence how the light acts on the body. So I think that there's a lot of room for advancement in tailoring what wavelengths are used.
Yeah, I agree. And my personal thoughts on that, I mean, you hit the nail on the head from a cost supply chain point of view. I mean, Andrew Latour from MitoRed, when I spoke to him last year, he lived in China for a while, or close to China, maybe it was Hong Kong. But anyway, he was going a lot of the trade shows over there for LEDs, and it was 660 and 850. Like, they were the easy ones to get. So you can see why it started off with those wavelengths. But what has been interesting is, some companies have sort of stuck with those wavelengths and saying that's all you need. And I still get comments today saying, do we really need these other wavelengths? So obviously the fact that your panels have expanded beyond those two wavelengths proves that, you believe there is benefit there. And anyone that spends a bit of time in the research will come to the same conclusion. So what about other wavelengths? Do you think we're going to start seeing, ambers and violets? I mean, Platinum LED, of course, have come out with a panel now that's got blue light in it. Do you think we're going to keep getting broader and broader in terms of wavelengths? You said you're a red light company, but do you think you're going to be putting out green lights and yellow lights and blue lights in the near future?
Potentially. Again, never say never. I still think there's a lot of room for learning and exploration within the optical window between 6 and 900. We've seen 940, and actually the bed that we offer, we can put 940 in that bed. There's an interesting study on sunburn where I don't know if you've seen this study, but they preconditioned the guy's arm. It was a preprint study. I don't know if it was ever published. So I should probably clarify that. But they preconditioned his arm with pretty much 400 nanometers up to like 1,000 nanometers. So 400 is the beginning of the visible spectrum. 1,000 is near infrared, the high end of near infrared. And the further you went up, the better the protection was from sunburn. So they preconditioned different parts of his arm with different wavelengths, and then they exposed it to UV and tried to burn his arm. Mm-hmm. And so at 660 there was some protection, but then at mid 800s the protection was better, and then when you got close to 1,000 it was even better. So that's interesting. Because, if I was, say, going to design a red light bed that was going to be used before somebody went and did a tanning session, then maybe you'd want to put something higher wavelength, like more closer to 1,000 nanometers, at least based on that one study, right? So that's one example where we would kind of go outside of the 6 to 900 because we have a little bit of data suggesting maybe a little bit higher might serve as a better preconditioning for UV exposure. And yes, there are applications. There's interesting, we were talking before we started filming about green light, and there's interesting data on migraines and 520 nanometer green. Now, I don't know how that would necessarily fit into MitoRedLight per se, because we're a red light therapy company, but it just goes to show that there are phototherapy applications at really all parts of the spectrum. And so, eventually we may find a way to incorporate that or have a standalone product, something like that.
Yeah, like you could have a migraine specific small panel or something. Because people get migraines, they just use that panel for that purpose. And it is exciting seeing the potential of these other wavelengths. Just going to be interesting to see how the industry runs with it, whether we start seeing panels with all sorts of colors, and whether people try to exploit it from a marketing point of view, or if they do come out with more dedicated products. So I guess it's a watch this space. But let's talk a bit more about that green. And it's a little bit off on a tangent, but you and I have both realized that a lot of devices that have your green or pink, as the example was that I mentioned, don't actually have the therapeutic wavelength in there. Do you want to tell people how that's played out?
Yes, well, it's interesting, and I think it's the subject of a whole article. Maybe we'll post one on the site. But just in terms of how the mind interprets color, and so I was mentioning, what is white light? White light is all of the wavelengths put together, which is actually, when you first hear that, it sounds a little weird, but that's what white light is. And so green light, but this is why you need to make sure that wherever you're purchasing a product from, that the people designing it understand the science and understand that it's not just any green light, because you can make green light by combining blue and yellow. But the actual data in that particular study was very specific, narrow band 520 nanometer green light. And actually blue will make your headache worse. So if you get a green light that's blue and yellow, your headache's going to get worse. And so you need to be very careful, and make sure that, they're explaining that they know the spectral graph and that this is a narrow band 520 nanometer LED. But you can have that, and the same issue with, say, orange. You can create orange with a narrow band LED and say that it's a low blue light, or a red. It's no or low or no blue light. Or you can combine wavelengths and it'll appear orange, but it could be polluted with green or blue. And so there's a lot of cheap lamps that you can buy, table lamps that you can buy, and just putting it on the orange setting isn't going to do justice to your circadian rhythm.
So yeah, I've got to do a video on it as well, just to show some of the things I've found. Like I've found devices that have the pink light, but it's actually red and blue, combined. But like you said, the brain sees it as thing. It's kind of hard to get your head around at first.
It is.
But when you look at what's been emitted, so no, it's very interesting, and something we should totally explore in a blog or video. Pulsing, it's good. What are your thoughts? I mean, it's all these new generation panel. Well, not all of them. Obviously, yours didn't, nor did the new platinum panel. But Infrared, some of these other companies out there, they're all running with pulsing. So, what are your thoughts? Have you looked into it? Do you think it's a bit of a fad? Is it something that we may see in MitoRed products down the line?
Probably not. And so I'm always open to having my mind changed. But my understanding of pulsing is that it is there's very little data to support pulsing in LED light therapy devices, period. So pulsing, I think the data on pulsing is typically around lasers, and so high-powered lasers. So generally speaking, and I think you've educated folks on this, but the higher the power, the better the penetration. So if you're trying to use light therapy, it just kind of makes sense. Obvious, you ever hold a flashlight up to your finger, the brighter the flashlight, the more red is going to come through your finger. And so if you want to deliver, let's say, a high-powered laser light deep into the body, you want to, if you want to deliver light using a laser deep into the body, the higher power, the better. The problem is with high-powered lasers, you have to worry about thermal issues in the skin. And so one of the ways around that is to pulse the laser. So fine, for laser applications, we are worried about burning the skin. Pulsing makes perfect sense. It's a countermeasure for the for the heating of the skin. But we don't have that problem in LEDs. So pulsing, there's no real data supporting pulsing for that purpose, because again, LEDs, usually a 30, 60, or 90 degree beam angle. There is no thermal heating. Or it's a very, very trivial amount, especially in the optical window. So no reason to pulse the LEDs. Secondly, pulsing visible light can be dangerous. There are people with, seizures in this. So I don't want to sell a device where we're pulsing the visible light. I'm not interested in putting anything out that's dangerous to anybody.
Yeah.
So pulsing visible light to me is a non-starter. Plus, I grew up in New York. I've been to a few clubs in my day, and I've never liked strobe lights at all, and I've always found them disorienting and uncomfortable. And some of these devices that are pulsing at, 50, 60, 70 hertz, it's painful. Like, why? This is supposed to be a relaxing therapy session. I don't understand why you would want to pulse a red light in your face at 30 hertz. So, not necessary, not particularly safe, and potentially problematic or not enjoyable.
Yeah.
So the only real reason, the only real legitimate thing that I'm aware of is this idea of entrainment, and that's generally with the brain. And so there's some supporting data for, let's say in a helmet or a brain-specific device, pulsing near infrared light at 40 hertz and trying to induce certain, brain states. So that's a very limited use case that I'm aware of. But, again, our lights are not, they're not very for that specific use case. So I don't really see the need to do it.
Will your LED helmet, will that be for brain health, or are they specifically for hair regrowth?
Yeah, this one is 650 nanometer class 2 lasers. So it's specifically for the hair follicle and scalp health.
Yeah.
I have had some scientists contact me and ask me to build a near infrared helmet they want to study, cognitive effects. And, there's a lot of, fortunately, age-related cognitive decline these days. And so that could be on the roadmap at some point. But right now, it's not high on the product development list.
Yeah, because I've been playing around with a helmet, how do I say it? Let me just double check it. Helmet it's 1070 nanometer light, and it's pulsed light as well. Neuro ink. Oh gosh, I'll pull it up. But it's really
is it 40 hertz? I'm assuming, or I don't know if you know, or is it variable?
It's 40 hertz, I believe. 30 or
40 hertz. Yeah.
I'll have a review coming out once. To be honest, it's a whole new field for me, so I'm literally trying to get my head around it, because it is an important topic, and like the pulsing and wavelengths.
I also find the pulsing thing somewhat ironic, because for a while, there was this burst of folks that were saying flicker is so dangerous and flicker is so stressful to the body, and then now we're this folks purposely pulsing and purposely flickering the light.
Yeah.
And actually at full amplitude, right? Because flicker is about frequency and it's about amplitude. And if you're pulsing it, presumably it's full amplitude flicker. And so it's kind of ironic that it seems to have come full circle where it's being marketed as a good thing.
Yeah, totally. So the product, I don't know how to pronounce it. Neuro NIC, Neuron IC, Neuron Neck. I'm not too sure. NeuroNeck.online. I'll put a link to it below. But I've been playing around with that, and it's actually the only device that I've consistently used that has pulsing in it. Because the main reason when it first came out, like you said, I thought, hey, this is just a fad. Who knows what's going on here? Sort of dismissed it. But like you said, I don't find it enjoyable to use. I mean, even the near-infrared only pulsing, especially on a panel, you can hear like the drivers. I mean, I know they're not mechanical, but there's a bit of a hum going on with the pulsing rate. I don't know. It's a bit odd. And my son's epileptic, so I'm super careful. Like I don't want him walking into the room and just start having a seizure. So like I know when those first panels came out, like the Light Path LED one, and it was on video. I filmed it on the video. The very, very first time I ever played with pulsing, and I'm like playing through the settings. Boom, the control panel was horrible. Don't even know how it works. Hit start, and it was like red light, full intensity red light pulsing at 10 hertz or something, and it was just like,
I know. You walked into the club.
Oh man, but it wasn't.
You gotta grab a drink.
It was not cool. So I can see why other companies such as Juve, have incorporated pulsing, but only with the near infrared light, and I think that's them being quite responsible in that sense. But yeah, it is interesting now how like all these new companies in particular all use pulsing, because it's like, well, we need to have that. We need to have every feature out there to have an advantage. But then you look at, I'm going to refer to you as your company as an old timer. You've got your MitoRedLight, you've got your Platinum, you've got your Juve. out of those three companies, only one has pulsing, and that's Juve with only 10 hertz at near infrared. You know, it's not like you've all just thrown yourself at pulsing and have all these new features, and it's interesting. And it's something that I know my team, Bart, has done a really good job looking at the research on pulsing. We've got a good article over it, but it's, like I said, it's something I still don't use.
Did you publish an article on it? I'm interested to read it because, again, I'm open to having my mind changed on this, but I'm not going to chase every fad.
Yeah, well, I'll put that link up to the pulsing article, and yeah, the conclusion was, you know, literally this is what the line says: the pulsing science is complicated, but there is an effect for sure. And Bart has discovered how, you know, a lot of that is around brain health, like we've talked about, and also he mentions brainwave entrainment, you know, like the different brainwave states. Again, that's stuff you touched on, but it's still not a definite yes, it's amazing, or no, it's horrible. It's we don't really know, and because of the safety issues, because of the discomfort, it's why I personally don't bother using it. Other than that helmet that I have been playing around with, because again, that's specifically targeted for the head. A fun little fact on that, on their website, that helmet, it's marketed as a 1070 nanometer device with a range of 50 nanometers. But when you turn it on, there's a little bit of red in it, and you turn it over and have a look, and there's like 2 red or maybe 4 red LEDs glowing. And when I look at the product sheet, there's no mention of 660 nanometer light. So I reached out to them and I said, did you put them in there just so you don't get, you know, customers saying, hey, my device is...
Why isn't it on?
That's exactly right. So there's probably people, you know, it's actually a red light device, but it's an infrared light. So I still get like questions. You guys must get heaps of questions about that as well. Hey, my device isn't working. What's going on, right?
Yes, it's a regular occurrence. It's on our FAQs for a reason.
Yeah. Okay, so someone comes to you with a ton of money. Well, no, let's just say they come to you and they say, money's not an issue. I want a product that's going to be the best for me and my family. Do you recommend a bed or a bunch of panels? I have no experience with beds, so I mean, do they have a time and place for a consumer?
Well, they're expensive, and obviously our especially relative to panels, right? So our bed is $65,000. You need special electrical. It's 20 amp. 30 amp, 220 volt here in the US. So it pulls 5,200 watts. It's got 41,600 LEDs. It's an experience. I mean, I love using it, but it's not the only. I mix it in. I like to mix it up. So I do use the bed on occasion because it's here in the office. Sometimes after work, I'll do it. But usually I'm actually at home in the morning using my 2X Mito Pro 1500 and 750 sandwich setup that I have at home. And it's a great way for me to start the day. So I don't know that I would necessarily recommend a bed for a typical at-home user. Even our giant panels that we sell, they're 6.5 feet tall, much less expensive, as long as you don't mind standing. If you don't mind standing, I think it is a significantly more cost-effective way to get an amazing amount of red light.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. I mean, obviously the price is a big factor, but you've also got space, the power, all that sort of jazz. But for a clinic, is that the product you recommend? A bed instead of the panels, instead of the tall panels? What's the most popular sale from the commercial side there?
I will say using the bed is a different experience. I tend to I don't know if you've ever done a full body red light session laying down, but I do. I don't want to say very often I don't fall asleep, but I definitely go into a different mind space while I'm laying down in that bed. It's kind of hard to explain. If you ever come over here, you should try it. I'm curious if it happens to you too. Like that kind of, it's just this half asleep, half awake feeling that you get, like sometimes when you're asleep and then you kind of half wake up, but you're not, you're just kind of in this in-between area. I can't really describe it. That happens to me a lot in that bed. And so it is nice. I do like it is a nice feeling because you really are super relaxed, and you can't do that when you're standing
Why
because
do you think
you'll
that's?
fall over.
Yeah, so do you have you thought about why that could be happening? Because some people actually find when they do a full body treatment, I'm assuming they're standing, but they often say they feel quite stimulated. Like I do it before a workout, right? So why do you think you're feeling that in a bit? Do you have any ideas?
I do not. I do not. I haven't really actually tried to figure it out. But I just know that it happens somewhat regularly. Um,
Interesting.
and I'm not really a meditator, and I that's not something that is actually happens easily for me. You know, like I'm usually quite alert and attentive, and I actually have a hard time standing still for 10 minutes, which is why I never meditate. But I go in that bed, and then a few minutes in, I just, I go to this nice place for a few minutes. And I will say that for me, that's, I've enjoyed that aspect of it. So again, to get back to your question for the clinics, it really depends on the clients coming into the clinic and what they want, and some folks, they're used to laying down. They want that total relaxation experience, and laying down is the way to do it. We came out with the Mito Red room as kind of a substitute for that, where at least you can put the room in there. You have a place to undress. It's private. You can stand. And that room is actually quite wide, so you actually could do some deep breathing. I mean, there's plenty of room to stand sideways in there. You could do resistant band workout in there if you wanted. And you still get plenty of light. So I do use the room, but I rotate. I rotate between the room, the bed, and my at-home setup personally. So as far as the clinics go, it really depends on what the clients are going to want, right?
Yeah, it is interesting. I have done a full body, well, half body, lying down treatment, and that was a couple of months ago because I've always stood up with my treatments, and people wanted to know about the horizontal stands, and I used to just dismiss them because it didn't interest me. Anyway, I finally got a motorized stand, put a bunch of panels on it, lie down on the bed, and yeah, the same thing that you mentioned. I found it very relaxing. It was bizarre. I did it no, I did it a couple of times actually because I literally set it up for the review just to get some filming and see what it felt like. And I ended up leaving it. It was in a guest room. I ended up leaving it for a few weeks because I was like, this is kind of nice. Like, it's weird because it was exactly the same panel setup that I'd typically use, but instead of vertical, it was horizontal. So I have, again, that wasn't a full bed. I didn't have the lights underneath me as well. But yeah, I can see the appeal there. So the issue is the space though, right? Like it just takes up so much space. And that's why I like your rooms, like the little commercial rooms you've got there. Because it's something you can tuck in the corner of a changing room or a gym or whatever, and like you said, people can go in and get changed, and you don't need a dedicated room just for the bed. So it's good you got options. I mean, you've got so many options now on your website. It is quite amazing. I can't even keep up with all the products you got coming out.
Me neither.
And speaking of products, what's the feedback like on your skincare, your serum? How's that going?
Well, it's not ours. I mean, it is through a company, Maysama, and so the kind of how the origin story for that is I came across a study, I think it was a 2008 study, and it looked at green tea and red light. And in the study, they used actually green tea bags, and then they just put them on kind of the crow's feet area of the face here for 20 minutes or something, and then they used the red light, and just the results were incredible. It was really incredible, just the way that it accelerated the benefits of the red light on the face, this one study. And so I said, wow, that's fascinating. And then I was like, I wonder if I should come out with a green tea serum. And I had that thought for about 30 seconds. And I said, I know absolutely nothing about skincare. and I don't want to get into the skincare formulation business. I got enough to do. So I said, let me go find a company that's making a high quality product that perhaps we can offer or suggest our customers try. Because at the end of the day, if we can make recommendations to our customers and how they're going to get a better experience with their light, it's win-win, right? So we found the company Maysama, and we funded a product study. I was in Poland, and I sent a bunch of Mito Mins actually over there, and and they used the lights, and they did a split face study. So they put the cream on only half the face, but they illuminated the entire face with the lights, and they found better results. They found results across the board, which was nice to see. So the red light did show benefit, but the benefits were augmented by pre-applying the antioxidant cream. So that was nice to see. And Bev is a wonderful woman. She's in the UK, and her product is really good. I actually use it almost every day. I have bottles everywhere where I do red light, because sometimes I forget to put it on. So when right before I go to do a session, I'll grab it and put it on my face and then do the session. And I'm very sensitive about what I put on my face, because I've had bad skin my whole life, but this stuff is very, it doesn't make my skin feel oily. So I'm a huge fan of it. And it's a small thing, but again, we're trying to introduce things to our customers that are going to improve their red light experience.
Yeah, it's good. And I'll put links to all the products Scott and I have mentioned below as well. I've got another question, and it's a little bit out there, but in an industry that's seen lots and lots of new companies emerging, you guys are consistently putting out great products, and of course you're doing really, really well in terms of my own testing and customer feedback, and just as a business in general. Why do you think this is? Why do you think you guys are outperforming most of the competition?
That's an interesting question. I think that's so first of all, I don't know that we can say that definitively, because I don't know exactly the business that other companies in the space are doing. Although my sense is that I generally agree with your sentiments from my vantage point. And I don't know, I think it's just because we genuinely try to do right by people. My goal as the CEO of this company is that we don't have a single unhappy customer. Like, that is the goal. And my team knows it. They all know that. Somebody's not happy, we're going to make it right. And I think if you just have that attitude, like, good things happen. It's actually not that complicated or that hard, And so one of the things, this sounds kind of trivial, but this is the restocking fees. I honestly don't get the whole restocking fees thing. If I bought a light for $1,000 and I wasn't happy with it, and I sent it back and you only gave me $800 back, I would be mad. I'd be like, what do you mean? Where's my $1,000? I just don't understand that. To me, that's so short-sighted. Not that I'm trying to give any of my competitors advice on how to run their company, but I just could never charge a restocking fee. I think it's so ridiculous. And also you're just giving people reason to be upset with you. And so for me, you have 60 days, you like it, fantastic. You're not happy, full refund. It's that simple. And I don't know how, it's kind of hard to do it wrong when you're doing it that way, I think. And then I think that, I run a very tight ship here. We have a skeleton crew. I work 7 days a week. I probably need to hire more people. I absolutely need to hire more people. And so because we have high standards. We want the best product, the best service, the best warranty. I want the best value. And so that means that we have to work hard in order to make that happen. So that's our goal. I think that sort of answers your question. Yeah. I don't know that there's any sort of secret sauce, honestly. Like, I just try to do business the right way. And I think that if you do that consistently, that in the long run, it pays off.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the opening remarks in that answer, where you talk about satisfying the customer and keeping them satisfied. That's everything in business, isn't it? And that's the long-term play. It's very easy to make a buck, but you may be exploiting people or tricking them or misleading them or whatever. So, and that's true for not just obviously red light, it's business in general. So, hey, look, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because I'm always impressed with your products, your company, your service, the customer support, all of that. And of course, I see a lot of people who are using your products and buying them, and it's very, very rare that I'll hear a negative remark. And if it is, it's typically like my package got lost. It's someone else's fault or something else has happened down the line. So, hey, look, I'm going to finish with one last question. And now this is where I sort of paint a bit of a target on my head. Now, I review your products, and it's open game. I'll I will say good things, but I'll say bad things if there are bad things. So I'm curious to hear what you think of my reviews. What would you do differently? Like, would you spend more time focusing on customer care and less on power readings, for instance? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And again, I'm open to criticisms. So far away.
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, I think, you are a pioneer in what you've done. You've basically created your own scoring system and, created the categories. And so just in that and of itself, you deserve a lot of credit, because it's not like you were just borrowing from, what somebody else has done. You created your own metrics, your own scoring system for your different, the different reviews that you do. So it's hard for me to be critical of somebody that's, taking that leap and just creating something from the ground up. I would say, probably, and I think I've levied this criticism to you before, and I understand why you wouldn't do it. But at the end of the day, if people aren't just buying a product, they're doing business with a company, and the customer experience matters.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, we partner with companies on a regular basis if we think that they are providing a product that's complementary. But part of my vetting process is I want to know who's running that company. Are they running it well? Do I feel that they're good people and that they're doing the right things? Because I feel that if I'm recommending a product or a company, that's my reputation, my credibility. And so I don't want to recommend something to somebody and they have a bad experience. I feel that reflects poorly on me. So I do think that the customer experience is a metric that I haven't seen included in any of your reviews, but from a customer side, it makes sense in some way to include. Although I'm going to devil's advocate here. I understand why that you would leave it out, because it's also a lot of subjectivity to that. And it's a difficult thing to quantify. So I understand why you leave it out, although I think in an ideal world, if there was a way to objectively quantify it somehow, that it would be valuable to put in.
I literally published a video 4 or 5 hours ago titled Red Light Customer Care, 5 Reasons.
You're kidding me. That's hilarious.
And 58 minutes ago. So I'm going to send you that link. It's only about 10 minutes. Because it is something that I'm conscious of, and I know you and I have spoken about it in the past. I know many, many people have emailed and commented, saying, look, you don't talk about this, and they'll mention particular companies, and it's every company. I've seen criticisms from every company as well. But as I outlined in that video and what you touched on, I don't know how. I don't know how to make it. It's very easy to compare pricing, to compare warranty, to compare wavelengths, LED counts, power readings, even to compare things like a control panel and user experience. I mean, it's getting a little bit subjective, but it's very clear when you've got one that's horrible to use and one that's nice, right? But when it comes to customer care, I mean, I'm not getting into detail because it's literally all in that video. But if you can come out with a solution, a metric that you think is fair or that I think is fair and balanced, I'll include it 100%. Like, of course, people say, I'll use the Trustpilot reviews or all these other independent review companies. And I look at them and there might be like 5 reviews on there. I'm like, I can't use that.
It's tough.
And in fact, like pretty much when I looked at Trustpilot, I think every single company, red light company I looked at had a bad Trustpilot review anyway. So it's like, well, So that's my little defense there. But again, check out that video. It is something I'm aware of. And hopefully for future comparisons, I'll have something in there. And just speaking just real quickly on those comparisons as well. I mean, anyone that has followed me over the years, and I'm sure you have seen some of my comparison videos, it's always changing. I spend a lot of time stressing about how to make this as fair as possible. And I'll include something that may not be that significant, and it does my head in because I feel like I have a responsibility to make, to keep my customers, I guess my viewers happy, and I don't want to mislead in that. And it gets to the point sometimes where I'm like, I shouldn't do these because who am I to say, I'm not some light engineer, I'm not some scientist, but it's a tricky one. At the end of the day though, we know that these products are working. It's very hard, I guess, for someone to buy a panel that's going to be dangerous or like do harm. I mean, we may see that in the coming years as those power levels get higher and higher. But where we have been the last 2 or 3 years, it's kind of been this like, you can't go wrong sort of get in a panel. And then it comes down to other things like customer care, warranty, ease of use. Can you add on more panels? Does it have a wide range of wavelengths? So that's what I'm trying to do, I guess, with my reviews. But hey, look, I really appreciate the feedback. And as you know, I'm always open to feedback. And likewise, anyone watching this, send it through. I keep learning myself. There's so much I don't know. There's so much we don't know, as we've talked about in terms of wavelengths and dosing. And at the end of the day, we do know it works though, right? It's just trying to find how to do it in the most efficient and optimal way. So look, I thank you for all the work you are doing in the space. I know, you're helping many, many people with pain and skin health and all those other good things that red light therapy, does provide. And also having a solid company with great, customer care and all the work you do on that front as well. So I thank you for that. And I especially thank you for your time today. It's gone over an hour, so very grateful for that. And yeah, we'll definitely stay in touch. And I'm looking forward to seeing how things play out with your data collecting and analysis in time.
I will keep you posted.
Cool. So if there's any,
it's going to be at least a year.
All right. So I'll be the first to report on it when it's started. Well, thank you again. If there's anything, where can people find your website? And if they want to reach out to you, how can people do that?
So it's Mito, M-I-T-O, short for mitochondria, redlight.com. And you can email customer service info@MitoRedLight.com.
Very good. And again, I'll put all these links below so you can check out all the products we mentioned, all the websites, all the articles as well. So again, thank you so much, Scott, and looking forward to hopefully meeting you in person maybe later this year.
Likewise, sir. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. As you can tell, Scott is very passionate about red light therapy and helping others. I am affiliated with MitoRedLight, and they have given me a discount code to share with you guys. That code is ALEX, A-L-E-X. Be sure to use that on any of their products. It does mean I get a little bit of a commission in exchange, but again, it helps me to continue researching and producing content on this channel. By the way, I mentioned in the video that I had some strong feelings and thoughts around MitoRed's new app and the usage tracking. If you want to hear those thoughts, be sure to check out this video. It's where I review the MitoRed MitoADAPT Min. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.